The atmosphere inside Studio 6B was beyond electric. It was charged with the kind of celebrity wattage few guests could generate, vibrating not just with noise but with sheer undeniable presence. The moment Lady Gaga stepped onto the stage, the audience's response was a tidal wave of adoration, a roar that acknowledged her status as a singular, transformative force in global culture. She was dressed in an ensemble that was simultaneously high fashion and strikingly theatrical, a visual masterpiece designed to project total control, radiating the kind of effortless command that only comes from years of dominating the world's biggest, most demanding stages. She greeted Jimmy Fallon with a genuine warmth, but beneath the practiced ease, an intense focus simmered, the perpetual, almost frightening concentration of a dedicated, brutally self-critical artist. They began with the typical friendly banter, covering her recent film accolades, her genre-defying collaborations with legendary musicians like Tony Bennett, and the incredible, grueling success of her most recent global tour, which had set revenue records despite navigating unprecedented logistical challenges. Gaga was articulate, funny, and deeply philosophical, discussing the mechanics of creative vision, the complex technical demands of her choreography, and the profound, almost spiritual emotional connection she shared with her little monsters. A bond she often described as the only thing truly sustaining her through the long, often lonely nights on the road. The conversation flowed smoothly, a testament to her total mastery of the celebrity interview format. But Jimmy, the ever-watchful conductor of the night's emotional trajectory, was subtly steering toward a profound, hidden point of rupture. He knew intimately that the core of Gaga's mythology, the seemingly flawless performance that never once faltered, was constructed on a foundation of immense, often dangerous, personal and physical cost. He waited for the perfect, most revealing moment until she was describing the religious exhilaration of her final, notoriously difficult tour performance in a particularly stormy, cold, and challenging European city, a concert that had gone down in fan legend for its sheer, defiant grandeur and astonishing vocal complexity. That night, Jimmy began, placing his note cards down, the soft, decisive thud serving as an immediate punctuation mark that instantly hushed the expectant audience. His entire tone shifted abruptly from friendly host to grave, respectful interrogator. That specific night in the pouring rain, soaked through, fighting the elements, you looked absolutely invincible, Gaga. You gave a show that even now, critics and fans are calling your single greatest performance technically and emotionally. But honestly, when you watch that high-quality footage back now, years later, what is the terrible hidden truth that the world missed? Gaga's smile instantly tightened, a fleeting flicker of something deeply guarded and profoundly private crossing her famous eyes. Her entire posture stiffened imperceptibly on the couch. She knew precisely which brutally difficult show he meant, and she knew the agonizing, career-risking secret that night held, a secret she had successfully hidden from every camera, every critic, and every single screaming fan. If the sheer, unbelievable dedication of an artist facing total physical collapse moves you, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell now. We reveal the true, hidden cost of perfection. Jimmy leaned forward, his entire body language signaling sincerity and profound concern, giving her no emotional escape route. Gaga, I need to show you something that nobody, not even your closest, most devoted team members, has ever seen. It's a moment of utter physical collapse that happened exactly 1 minute before you delivered your final, magnificent encore. It is the unvarnished, terrifying evidence of the real price of that perfection. With a swift, subtle gesture, the massive stage lights dimmed instantly, plunging the entire studio into a deep, unsettling blue hue. The giant screen behind them flickered to life. What appeared was not the glamorous, high-definition concert footage, but a raw, shaky, grainier feed from a poorly lit security camera positioned in the darkest, most secluded corner of the stage's emergency medical tent. The silence that fell over Studio 6B was absolute, heavy, and immediate. On the screen, a figure stumbled violently, almost falling, as they were rushed off the stage ramp. It was undeniably Gaga, instantly recognizable, but completely stripped of her costume's power and her public persona. She was wearing only her stage corset and leggings, drenched in a toxic mixture of cold rain, sweat, and debilitating adrenaline. She was flanked not by her usual robust dancers, but by two massive security guards who were desperately trying to hold her frail body upright, preventing her from hitting the floor. Her head was thrown back against one guard's shoulder, her neck muscles visibly straining, and her face was a terrifying pale mask of white-hot, uncontrollable agony. She looked less like a global superstar and more like a barely conscious crash victim being dragged from a wreck. The audience gasped, a deep collective sound of shock, fear, and profound concern for her evident suffering. Past Gaga was visibly struggling for air, her chest heaving in short, desperate, ineffective bursts. The audio, clear and terrifyingly unedited, captured her whispered, panicked plea to the nearest medic, who was struggling to keep pace. "I can't breathe. I cannot get the air to my lungs. My throat is closing up, I think. I think I've severely ruptured something, doctor. If I attempt to sing that final, impossibly high note, I might permanently silence myself. I need you to understand the gravity of that choice." The raw, unscripted medical urgency of the moment was stunningly palpable. The medic was shown frantically trying to administer a shot or an inhalation treatment, his face a picture of terror and ethical dilemma. He was visibly arguing with her in the footage. The footage then showed her violently shaking her head, rejecting the medication and the possibility of vocal rest, her focus not on her immediate physical survival, but on the impossible, terrifying commitment to the final song that the entire stadium was now chanting for. The camera focused relentlessly on her mouth as she whispered one final, devastating, career-defining sentence to the medic, a line that exposed the core of her destructive, total dedication to her art. "I don't care about the risk to my career right now. I have to finish this show. My monsters waited in the cold and deserve the whole show, every single promised note." And with that iron-willed, singular command, she violently pushed away from the medic's frantic grasp, stumbled, and forced her already collapsing body back up the long, dark ramp, heading back into the blinding stadium light, heading directly for the most vocally challenging, climactic moment of the encore. The footage abruptly cut back to the main concert feed, perfectly timed to the start of the final, soaring, technically impossible to hit high note of the last song. The emotional contrast was absolutely devastating. The sound of absolute vocal perfection pouring from the stadium speakers, juxtaposed with the fresh visual memory of her body collapsing less than 60 seconds earlier. The sound of that flawless, sustained note now felt less like artistic triumph and more like a deliberate, desperate act of self-harm. The studio lighting slowly returned, warm and soft, bathing the silent stage, but the emotional damage was permanent. Jimmy looked utterly devastated, his professional neutrality entirely gone. Gaga sat completely still, her composure utterly shattered by the visual exposure. Her hands were clasped so tightly together in her lap that her knuckles were entirely white. Her eyes, usually so fierce and controlled, were now visibly glazed with the traumatic memory and raw, unmasked pain. She spoke finally, her voice raspy and thin, a ghost of her usual powerful, commanding delivery. I didn't know anyone kept that footage. I honestly thought it was destroyed years ago. That was, without question, my darkest, most frightening moment on any stage, my biggest, most carefully guarded secret. She confessed that she had been suffering simultaneously from an intense, debilitating flare-up of a chronic pain condition combined with a serious, previously undiagnosed vocal cord injury that night. Every doctor and voice coach told me backstage, in no uncertain terms, that if I attempted to sing that final sustained high B-flat, I could hemorrhage my cord and risk permanent vocal damage. It was a clear career-ending warning, and I ignored it. Jimmy's lips parted, stunned into temporary silence. "But you did it, Gaga. You hit the note flawlessly. It was pure technical perfection, despite the physical impossibility." Gaga leaned forward, her elbows on her knees, staring intensely at the floor. The iconic persona had vanished entirely. Only the vulnerable, suffering human remained. Because I felt I had to. The audience bought tickets for an experience, an escape from their own reality, not an excuse for mine. But watching that raw backstage clip just now, it's the truth. The doctor was screaming and pleading in my earpiece that I was risking my career. But the thought of disappointing those thousands of people who waited in the freezing rain felt physically more painful than the thought of permanently losing my voice. It was a choice between my future and their immediate satisfaction, and I chose them. She continued, the confession pouring out, revealing the punishing, ruthless inner monologue of the perfectionist. That night, the physical pain was so intense, the fatigue was so deep, I was seeing black spots and losing my peripheral vision. When I was singing the second verse of the encore, I had to completely change my breathing technique, essentially locking my entire core just to prevent myself from passing out or collapsing right there at the mic. I was singing with only my willpower, not my diaphragm. The massive applause that followed felt less like adoration and more like a cruel judgment of my survival. The audience, now fully understanding the terrifying, near-fatal sacrifice, was not clapping or roaring. They were silent, many visibly weeping softly, paying tribute to her profound artistic sacrifice. Gaga looked up, finally meeting Jimmy's empathetic wide gaze, and the tears finally flowed, large dramatic drops that she didn't bother to wipe away. I've spent my entire life creating a persona, a wall of absolute invincibility. That raw footage shows the harsh reality. I'm just a woman fighting desperately to hold a fractured body and a fragile voice together for 2 hours. The greatest performance I ever gave that night was not the singing. It was the intense, agonizing performance of hiding the pain. Jimmy, utterly unable to speak for a long moment, simply nodded slowly, his eyes wide with profound, overwhelmed respect. He finally managed to speak. Lady Gaga, you taught the world that night that perfection isn't achieved effortlessly. It's achieved through absolute, terrifying self-sacrifice and pure inhuman willpower. You didn't just sing that final note. You willed it into existence every millisecond, despite your body screaming no. You risked everything for the commitment. The room erupted into a thunderous, emotional standing ovation. A standing ovation that wasn't for the hits, the outfits, or the fame, but for the raw, terrifying human cost of her artistic dedication. It was an ovation for her broken, yet unyielding spirit and her absolute commitment to her fans. Gaga stood, humbled, wiping her face with the back of her hand, whispering her thanks. The segment instantly became the defining, most humanizing moment of her public life, recontextualizing her entire career as an agonizing, heroic battle against her own physical and psychological limitations. She left the stage not as a monster, but as a warrior who had finally revealed her hidden wounds. The silent, shocking footage of her collapsing backstage became an instant viral sensation, a stark, painful reminder that the most dazzling light often casts the deepest, darkest shadows. Her confession of prioritizing the audience's expectation over her own physical safety humanized her in a way no album or film ever could. That high B-flat, once a note of pure triumph, became a lasting testament to destructive, heroic willpower. It confirmed that the most compelling theater is the internal struggle we never, ever see. Next, we explore a story about the true meaning of strength. We delve into the unbelievable moment Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson broke his own security rules and risked a massive lawsuit to help a paralyzed fan, a spontaneous, emotional act of empathy that left Jimmy Fallon and the audience utterly speechless. His actions proved that true strength is found not in contracts, but in boundless, risky compassion,